Hey and welcome to another devlog of my roguelike game, which, surprise surprise, still doesn't have a name. At this point, it's almost a feature. I ended previous devlog saying I would focus on fixing procedural generation for dungeons. So guess what? I actually did it. What are the current issues with my dungeons? Well, not all rooms are always connected, as you can see here. Sometimes my algorithm would generate two separate dungeons and I have no clue how to connect them. So I have two options, I think. First, find a way to fix it, or second, not do it myself and instead look for existing dungeon generation algorithms and just adjust them to my needs. Since that seems easier, let's start from it. And after some research, I found an article about different algorithms for procedural generation. I decided to check them. First algorithm I tried was random walk. It's the most basic thing ever. You tell a point to move randomly in any direction and congrats, you have a dungeon. I actually came up with this myself a few months ago when I was trying to do the Binding of Isaac style dungeons. Turned out I reinvented the wheel. But when I was looking at the results, I had no idea how to turn this into something similar to what I already have, so into the next one. And next one is binary space partitioning. The article says it's great, divides dungeon into sections and creates corridors to connect rooms made by these sections. I say it doesn't work. Why? No idea. Results were weird. Next one is cellular automata, which is more like generating caves than dungeons. Cool, I can see how it could be useful in different type of game, but it's not what I need right now. Fun fact, I once did this thing, Conway's Game of Life to be precise, when I was learning how to make games by doing 20 games challenge. I wanted to make video about those games, but first part got like 10 views in half a year, so yeah, that's why you're watching this instead. Okay, next, drunkard walk. Pretty much the same as random walk. Am I crazy or am I just reading fancy names for the same thing? Maybe it looks different in a bigger project and my few lines of code for prototyping is just not enough. At this point, I decided to try the first option, which was just fixing my own algorithm. I even tried to cheat and contact my buddy ChatGPT, but even he couldn't help me. Then I started doubting not only in my coding skills, but also in my prompting skills. Maybe this whole thing isn't for me. Maybe I'm just dumb. Until, while mindlessly browsing Reddit, I came across another guy called Cloud. And you know what? Maybe he's not as expressive as Chad, and he lacks in other skills, but he's my new coding buddy now. He made his own script for generating dungeons, and it was similar enough to mine, that I could compare and test the differences between them, and after some adjusting, testing and little tweaks, it somehow worked. And now not only does the dungeon generate as one, but also we got rid of those ugly diagonal corridors. And since we have overall generation complete, it was time to swap those generated rooms with pre-made presets that would spawn instead of them. So I added custom class for my room preset, added some variables to make it connect properly with existing algorithms, and at first glance it worked. The problem was with colliding and navigation with these new room nodes. So I just had to properly connect them with the main dungeon. Fixing collisions was easy, but I had some issues with enemy pathfinding. They just couldn't figure out where the walls were. I tried multiple things like deleting or changing specific tiles in these rooms and copying them into main dungeon, thinking that A-star pathfinding wasn't working across my multiple layers. But then I copied my old script and noticed that it didn't work there either. And for the past two devlogs I've been testing stuff on handmade level, so I just didn't realize it before. After some digging, the issue turned out to be in the enemy movement script, which was referencing an empty A-star variable that was from the first iterations of my procedural generation and pathfinding, back when I had everything in a single script to test things out. Anyway, I fixed it. And now it works flawlessly. Yeah, time to add a proper spawning function. So I made a spawner script. It stores info about what kind of entity to spawn, picks something randomly, and then lets the game scene know what's happening. Hooked up some signals and it all works perfectly. Hey, look! Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's a new bug! Walls blocking corridors. Easy fix, just deleted one line. Maybe it's even too easy. Alright, break from coding. Time for some art. If you have seen my videos, you would know that I'm not an artist. But hey, this whole game project is about learning, so I won't use any free texture assets here. But before making art, we need some lore to make the game believable. You know, to answer questions like, what's the story about? No clue. But let's keep it simple. You play as a dwarf. That's it, that's the plot for now. So, let's make some dwarf pixel art. And here it is. Gotta say, I might be a little too proud of this. And look, I also made my first ever animation. Just 4 frames and at least one of them is made wrong, but it's a start. This little guy is staying for now, because I think we've been staring at the Godot logo long enough. That's already enough art for me. Let's get back to it in, I don't know, maybe 2 devlogs. This little guy needs to be milked for YouTube thumbnails for a while. Back to coding, and guess what? I found what caused a bug from previous devlog. It was something about order in inventory. Slots were not slotting properly, and item info sometimes was mixed. Tweaked the system a bit, and it's fixed. Also did some quality of life improvements while I was at it. Final big update: spawning and entering new floors now work properly. With that, we finally have something that we can call a prototype with a basic endless game loop. And that's it for today. Procedural generation is working, content spawned properly, and we've got our first piece of real art. What's next? Stuff like experience, leveling, health bar, and I think about adding something like a shop. Peace.